our own the Golden Muzzy, Nick Alberga, took a break from vacation the other day and came out on Twitter and told us that sources confirm the Maple Leafs are among the teams firmly in the mix to sign veteran UFA forward Max Pacioretty. Now, Rosie, I have done some digging into this one and where he was at. Max Pacioretty, 35 years old, left hand, left winger. Spent the last 2 seasons. He was in Carolina in 2022, 2023. He was in Washington in 23, 24. He's played 52 games over the last 2 seasons. He's dealt with some injuries. He hasn't really had a full offseason in about 3 summers here. This is going to be the first one that he's experienced. Where are you at on signing these veteran forwards, bringing guys like this into camp? I mean, we know that he's a guy who can bring some offensive scoring. He can bring some veteran experience to the power play here potentially. But at 35 years old and a guy who has not fared well with injuries the last 3 seasons, is this a guy that you're going to prioritize bringing into camp or signing on this team?
Well, I don't know about prioritize, but you got to think, what are the issues here? I think he's turning 36 in November.
Yeah.
Um, he's been injury prone, right? And what is he going to command as far as money's concerned? So you got kind of a couple of negatives off the bat, but the positives are he's a high stock guy. He's a consummate professional. He's got a ton of experience, and he could help out with carrying the load of like leadership and how to do things out there and what to do at practice and how to carry and conduct yourself and what kind of time you got to put in the gym and all that stuff. You don't be Max Pacioretty without having all those ducks in a row. So there's certainly some positives. And like you say, he invents his game, reinvents it, or kind of figures out what holes need to be plugged on the Toronto Maple Leafs roster on that bottom six and starts, filling those holes by playing the style that they need, defensively responsible, high energy. You got to be a little bit physical, but when you get it in their end and you can cycle it around, you can hold it in the ozone a little bit, you get set up, you can finish that, you can make some plays. He's obviously very skilled still. So it's a gamble, it's a risk. There's potential for it to go well. Say he slots into this line really well. He does all the things you want. He's the professional. He takes some guys under his wing, chips in a couple points here, knows what he's doing. Oh, that worked out great for cheap. Or you get him, you sign him, he's injured right away, then there's nowhere for him to play, and it can go south in a hurry too. So I don't know. There's guys like that. There's JVR, Hoffman. There are a lot of comparables with those guys. Similar in age, similar in point production, injury history, and it's not one of those deal breakers, but it's just tough. Everyone wants to say that would be a good fit. Nobody knows if it would be a good fit because no one has a crystal ball. Would it work out? Would he stay healthy? Nobody knows. But a guy like that, there is certainly some upside, but I think you got to tread water carefully with those things because you don't want to get yourself into a jam where you're like, why did we do that? Now we've kind of screwed ourselves cap wise, and we've got a guy that's going to give us 20 games this season. It's not really the point of a signing like that.
Yeah, that's the thing that I would be more curious about how they handle it because I don't really have an issue with the player, the personality, whatever. It seems like he's been, he was a captain of the Montreal Canadiens when he was there. He's obviously someone who's going to be at least liked and respected within a locker room. He seems to have been respected and liked wherever he's gone elsewhere after that, Vegas, Carolina, Washington, even though he spent some limited time. But it's just kind of age, injury history. Okay, what are they going to do on this contract? We saw some crazy contracts here for some older guys in the past that might have came back to bite us in the ass. How is that going to affect you? How are you going to handle those? How are those going to be signed? I don't really have an issue with that, but it's just kind of the idea of how they're going to go about signing him if they do choose to. But you brought up some other guys there. That's a good tease. We'll get into some of that tomorrow. We will be back tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. for another edition of Leafs Morning Take. I'll be filling in yet again, so we'll play a game. I've got one. I was gonna get into it today, but I think we'll save it for tomorrow, Rosie. We've got enough content to go into tomorrow, so we'll debut that tomorrow with some other
Good, good.
players out there that we'll look at. But yeah, as far as Pacioretty goes, I don't know.
So what do you
It's
think on him?
interesting.
What do you think his money? What do you think his dollar figure would be if they brought him in? Like, what do you think that contract looks like?
You have to be looking at something near what those veteran minimums are, right? Like, am I out of my mind to think that? Like, I think he's probably going to get more than that, but we can't be talking about more than $1 million for this guy. Like, he hasn't played. Like, he hasn't played, and that's not a knock against him. He just hasn't played, and he's going to be 36 to start the year.
Yeah, and it's not like I agree, like $1 million or under. I mean, he's standing there with camp lurking in the background. No one's given him a contract, so it's not like he's got a ton of options. It's not like he's got a ton of leverage. Every time
No.
he talks to any team, there's going to be a big question mark of are you healthy and can you stay healthy? And maybe that's frustrating for him because he's like, God, they have no idea how healthy I am. Like I had this problem and we literally fixed it, and it is no longer even a thing that I feel. I wish they knew that. That's the plight of an athlete sometimes is you need to go prove that, and you might have to burn a year proving that. And at 35, 36 years old, that can probably be frustrating, but it is what it is. Injuries are very frustrating. So, yeah, I think that he could, come in at something quite low like that, and you roll the dice with it. And like you say, it's not like we're rolling the dice at $3.2 million and then really kicking ourselves in the ass. Yeah, a million or under, and you can get that guy with the positives. That would be the roll of the dice, right? It's not a lot of money, and it's a chance he's not going to be healthy. But again, it's one of those things where an in-person conversation, I think, can tell you a lot about where the guy's at, where his head's at, what his confidence level is, what was going on with the injury, what have you done for it, what are the doctors saying. That would shine a lot of light that the fans just aren't privy to, which would probably end up making or breaking this deal in my mind.
Well, so here, like looking at this, I pull up just where it was at last year. So he plays 47 games, right, with Washington. He has 4 goals, 19 assists. He made $2 million for the year. That was what his salary was in last season. Another year to go by. I just can't see it being at that number again here. It's not like he
No.
blew us away with product. Like, yeah, okay, almost a point 0.5 points per game, kind of. That's pretty good for where he was at, but that doesn't mean it sustains for this year. He's not 28 years old thinking he's going to do that again at 29, 35 going into 36. Again, all the injury history. I would think it would be around a million, which I'm fine with at that. But anything more, I'm going to start questioning things. The only other thing we'll get to here, but with that, would just be kind of where does this affect the rest of these kids who might be trying to come up? We saw Easton Cowan isn't going to go to London Knights camp, and I don't think he should because he's going to focus on trying to make this Leafs team. But you've got some of these kids, Jacob Quillen coming out of Quinnipiac University. You got Easton Cowan, you got Fraser Minton, these other guys who are going to be trying to make this team on ELCs. Is it getting in the way of those guys to sign a veteran guy like that to the roster, to fill up some cap space, to fill up a roster spot here with this organization? Like, does it block them in your mind?
I mean, it could, and that's why we haven't really talked about a PTO, right? A professional tryout, and that just means, hey, come into camp, show us what you got, see where you stack up, and let us build our team. And if we build it and put those pieces together, and boop, you fit right here, that's where we want you. Then here comes the contract. That would be ideal for the Toronto Maple Leafs if Max Pacioretty at this point in time is not willing to do that and says, no, I'm not going to take that tryout option, after my background and my experience level, then maybe he'll wait for something else and something else will come up. So maybe that's not an option. But I think for the Maple Leafs, that would be ideal. Let's come in. Let's see what Cowan does. Let's see how he looks this year. Let's look at Mint and let's look at these young guys on ELCs. Can they crack a spot in this roster? And does that leave anything open for a guy like Max Pacioretty? What about the center position? Like I think we can talk about that tomorrow. Maybe like what's going on at center? Is that deep enough? You look at the third and fourth line centers. It's kind of like it's getting kind of lean for a team that's trying to win a championship. So again, I think the ideal thing for the Maple Leafs would to bring Max Pacioretty on a PTO, and then you can see where the chips fall and say, thanks for your services, Matt, but we're not going to be needing you anymore. And you're absolutely not harmed by it whatsoever. On the other hand, I think Max and his company might have a different idea on that. But that's the funny thing. You don't know where I just always have my mind on Easton Cowan. I just think this kid's a stud. I think he's one of those guys that plays way above his maturity level and his age. And if he comes in like last year, I mean, him and Minton were these babies who are just like, what? And they're absolutely buzzing through preseason, buzzing through camp. They stood out more than anybody. And it was
Yep.
like, wow, those kids are studs. And you go on, and I think with the season that Cowan had and everything, and you talk about World Juniors, that I think he's blossomed. And you talk to him, and he looks like one of those kids with tons of confidence, doesn't let the moment get like just those younger kids that can make the NHL at 18, I'm always just like, who are you and why don't you have the circus going on in your brain that makes you like second guess anything? I think he's void of that, and he's a kid that can step in and do big things. So that's the one big thing I'm excited about this camp is Easton Cowan, and if he can make it. And I think like those question marks make it kind of dicey to say, well, do we sign a veteran guy like Pacioretty or not? And my answer is a PTO, but like I said, it's there's two parties involved in getting something like that done, and he might not be interested.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.